Hey guys, Charlie Murphy here. I'm back playing a session of 1-2 no limit 6 max on Ignition regular tables. Our games are up and running, so let's jump right in. Playing 3-better fold out of the small blind there against the button open. Much better hands than a raggy offsuit ace to 3-bet with. Starting to tag players that are likely to be recreationals. Limping pre-flop is a real good indicator. And these guys with shorter stacks also plays into that as well. This upper right table looks excellent even if the guys don't have that much money at it. This is the bet check bet line. We've got a bluff catcher. We're not going to be good a lot of the time here, but it still is pretty heavily overbluffed, especially for that half pot size, and we're going to go ahead and call that. I like his bet there with the second pair on the river. Even a board like this, I will range bet small a ton of the time just because I'm not getting punished or raised for it. I don't believe it's theoretically correct. But if they're not going to abuse me for it, I may as well keep my life simple. Be overbetting that turn with overpairs, trips, straights. A lot of my boats. I'm not going to hero against a 2x pot here with king high, even though I think there probably is a lot of misdraws in his range. Over here, we're going to 3-bet the cutoff open from the button. Multi-way on the king high board with ace king. We're going to go ahead and bet out small. Not range betting there, of course, multi-way. But still going to start betting our good top pair type hands. Now that we're heads up, it's against a check call. I'm going to overbet here. I'm going to overbet my ace, king, king, queen, 5s, 4s. I guess I might have 5-4 suited as well. A few combos of that. Could overbet aces as well. And then a lot of my flush draws, and I guess I wouldn't really have queen 10 because that wouldn't bet the flop. 6-7, I would bet my 6-7 type hands. I don't want to overbet jam here. I would do it with the small sets. If I somehow had, Queen Jack for the straight, I would overbet jam that. Aces could maybe overbet jam because we don't really block the kings that I'm trying to get hero called by. I do think I want to go ahead and bet for value, try to get called by king, queen, king, jack. So I'm going to use the smaller, more standard size, 2/3-ish type sizing. Glad I did not get check raised. Glad I got called and glad I was good. Check and see what it is that he had. And he had king 7 of hearts. Couple of recreational type players limping. I can go ahead and tag this guy as a rec as well for playing his 38-13 short stack, didn't reload, playing king 7, calling the 3 barrels down. Blind down blind, lower right table, go ahead and open the 8-7 suited. Check range, especially on a board like the Queen 8-9 two-tone out of position, blind down blind. We are going to go ahead and use a small bet on the turn after checks through. Upper left-hand board, got the top pair open-ender, a 6-4-3 against a probable rec player in the small blind. And now that we made the straight, we're going to go ahead and continue barreling. I'm going to use the pot size bet on that 4 straight run out over here in the lower right-hand table. Upper left-hand table, I'd be betting a lot of 5s with open-ended straight draws. However, a 5 with a marginal pair that's going to make a good bluff catcher on the river is a great one to check back. I think I would even check back a hand like 8-5 if I had it. Be looking to overbet for value my sets if I had any straights. And maybe ace-8. Ace-8 or king-8 is probably the cutoff. I would check back worse. Ace is not necessarily the best bluff catching card on the river because he could have flooded me with some wonky ace high stuff on the flop. But that low turn, that I've got this pair here, that low board on the turn is good to turn a lot of these marginal pairs into checkbacks to bluff catch just because these low boards are very heavily over bluffed in that spot. Could think about value betting my 6 there, but with it being third pair, I don't know if I'm going to get heroed by that 4 all that often. Pretty close, though. I don't hate it if you decide to value bet it. I just took my showdown instead. Another player that appears to be a recreational player, getting in this pot with me. Shorter stacked, has limped already. We'd be checking range here, four-handed, especially with a couple players in position to me. If I was on the button, I would, if I was the last player to act on the flop, I would have some bets out of position. I'm just going to go ahead and check my range. I'm going to go ahead and start stabbing at this, even though there's so many guys out there. I'm going to use a very small bet size, like a 1/3-ish type size, just because it's multi-way and it's the best sizing to use multi-way. You don't want to be betting too big. I'm going to be blasting a lot of rivers if I'm down, just a heads up. In fact, I'll probably be blasting just about every river for one size or another. I'm not sure what I should do here. I mean, the ace of spades could be in somebody's range. I think I'm going to have to go ahead and actually bet this. Once again, I'm going to bet very small multi-way. I've been experimenting with that. On the river, I'm less sure that that's correct. But okay, so we were against a straight with a small spade there from the rec player. Could maybe fold him out with a larger size. On that four flush run out, if I'm heads up, I'm definitely going to be using a pot size bet. I'm not going to be betting small. I've been experimenting with these smaller sizes in multi-way pots. I'm quite comfortable that's the way to go on the flop and the turn. The river, I'm less certain of it as of right now. But I don't mind bluffing there on that 4 flush run out, even multi-way, just because my hand has no chance of winning by checking, and a lot of stuff is going to fold if I give it a chance to do so. Lower right-hand table, the cutoff opens 2.5x. Going to go ahead and 3-bet a 9 or 10% range. Suited broadways, maybe suited 9s, ace-king, ace-queen, 8s or 9s are better. Maybe a couple suited wheel aces, ace-5, maybe ace-4, something like that. Upper right-hand table, blind down blind. Going to use something like a standard solver-approved open range for 3x size, about 45%, including all suited queens. Got quickly call. We'll go ahead and check range. This could also probably be a board where you bet range small. I've just been mostly defaulting to checking range blind down blind. He's been aggressive. I think I want to use a check raise size here because I think he probably stabs so much stuff that folds. I block king queen. I've got backdoor hearts. A little on the aggressive side, especially against a fish, but not the end of the world. I think it's worth a shot. He's been very aggressive, and he's also very wide range pre-flop. I think he has a lot of stuff that just auto stabs, is why I'm doing that there. I like it even better against a slightly smaller size and against a player that's less fishy if I don't know him to be aggressive, you know, as a default. And so the check raise there was largely based on reads that this guy has a ton of junk in his pre-flop range, and he's also been very aggressive post-flop so far, 83% aggression frequency. You want to be a bit cautious reading too much into small sample sizes, but a guy that's playing that wacky and that far out of line, you can probably make that conclusion that he's betting way too many hands. Lower left-hand table, we're on the small blind. We face a 2x open from the button. Thinking about what to do against that. They can 3-bet here, probably a little bit wider than typical because that 2x size denotes a wider range. Queen 9 suited is a pretty good hand to 3-bet, and that button open versus when we're on the small blind anyway, and we took it down quickly. Lower right-hand table. We're going to check range out of position to the recreational player who checks back on the ace-queen flop, two-tone. Now with that 6 peeling, we're going to go ahead and just start betting small just because they overfold and under-raise against that. So you pick up the pot way more often than we should for that little tiny jab. And against the raise, we can just go ahead and pitch this with no real showdown value, no real draw. You know, I could also have trip aces. I could have queens full, sixes full. I could have a lot of strong hands or some pretty good draws as well. So I don't mind folding, especially knowing the player pool doesn't raise those nearly often enough, so we get away with it. And there's no reason to start defending loose against a player pool that doesn't raise enough to begin with. Get a rec player, limps the cutoff. We'll complete the small blind with 9-6 of hearts and check range on the flop. Nobody jabbed at it on the flop. I'm gonna go ahead and start betting small multi-way. Expect to pick up pot quite a bit from these guys. Interesting river card in that I don't really think I fold out the aces or the queens. I get called by some 4x or 3x, but I'm not sure I get called enough to justify it. And these fish also tend to be passive and don't bluff you enough in that line. So I'm just going to go ahead and check and try to show down my 9. I was planning to try to bluff him on the river, but when I hit a hand that has less showdown value, and tends to fall right in the middle of the stuff that never folds and the stuff that often folds, I think trying to check and get a free shot on there, especially when I don't think I'm going to get bluffed off a better hand very often, I think that's a better play. You could also go ahead and try to take a mergey thin value bet to get yourself the shot on there. You know, when you're going to get called by aces and queens a ton, but also get called by 4x, 3x type hands, random pocket pairs that you beat, you know, probably close enough to justify it. I think checking's a bit better, but if you wanted to go ahead and mergey bet there, you know, a blocker bet is an exploit against a recreational player that probably isn't going to be aggressive and raise you enough. Also isn't a bad move. Lets you get priced into showdown for cheap. But the reason why you're doing that is to take away their ability to bluff you off the hand, and I just don't think these guys are going to bluff me off the hand in that line very often as it is, so it's probably not necessary to do that. I think checking is the best play there. Two X open from the cutoff. We're on the button. We're going to go ahead and pop them up with Ace King for sure. Cutoff 2X open will be a bit looser because once again that min raise usually denotes a wider range. So we'll probably be something like a 14% 3-bet range here. Sixes plus, suited broadways, suited nines, any suited ace, ace jack plus, king queen, something like that. Get you up to 14, 15%. I think that's the way to go. Lower left-hand table, we open King 10 suited under the gun, and we get an in-position caller, and then both the blinds come along as well. Jack 9-7 rainbow, so we actually have a double gut shot here. We're going to go ahead and check the range, though, out of position. We are going to start betting, though, now after everyone checks through on the flop. Lower right-hand table, a 2.5x open from the middle position. We're going to 3-bet our cutoff with queens. And we're going to follow through heads up on the lower left-hand table with our busted draw. Got 4-bet. We're going to go ahead and trap with aces, call with queens and jacks and ace-queen suited, and jam in our kings and ace-king, both suited and off. And I think the move here is to go ahead and jam. I mean, aces still make a pretty good trap, but a hand like queens and jacks, actually no, in position I can go ahead and float. I'm going to go ahead and flat my entire continue range, including some ace-queen suited with the backdoor draws, so I'm mostly continuing against that. Blind on blind, lower left-hand table, we're going to go ahead and 3-bet the ace-queen. And we're going to go ahead and stab small with our queens now on that Jack 9-6-4 4-bet pot spot. We're going to call off with queens against the check raise. Could probably be using my hands like ace queen suited that flooded the flop that did not pick up a backdoor flush draw as my stabs here. Ace queen of clubs, I think I would check back to try to realize. Aces I could check back to trap. I don't really expect him to tab too much ace king here, so I'm not that worried about that king hurting me. I think I'm gonna jam this in here and try to get, well, it's close. I don't know. I don't know if I want to try to get heroed. I may be just walking into traps too much. I'm going to check back. Jacks is the hand I'm trying to target there. I don't know if I can really get paid off with that king and the flush closing river at the same time. I also don't know how much he 4-bets jacks. Jacks should often just be a call in these games, although they will certainly be 4-bet some of the time. Getting 3-bet. This table doesn't seem too weak, so I'm going to look to shuffle it out. Upper right-hand table in the small blind, we're facing a 2.5x cutoff open with 3-bet 10-11%, including pocket tens. Suspected fish with the limp. However, it's only once. That could be a misclick. Also VPIP the small blind without raising. I'll tag him for now. We'll see if the stats or his play tells me anything differently. 44-0 with 50% limps over 9 hands. Pretty clear rec. Short stack. Pretty clear rec. 15-0 with some limps over 13 hands. Likely rec. Lower right-hand table, we opened Queen-9 suited from the cutoff, got called by the button and the small blind. Jack-8-4 with the flush draw, which we have. Obviously, it's a pretty nice draw. However, out of position with a player, in a multi-way pot, we're just going to go ahead and check the range. Probably check raise this if the button stabs. Maybe not against that size, and against a smaller sizing, I would check raise. I'm just going to go ahead and actually check call this. I'm not expecting that to be, and it shouldn't be that weak a range against that sizing multi-way. We'll check and reevaluate. If he checks back, I can certainly bluff the river. Hands like King-Jack might get scared of the ace. I can legitimately have the ace-high flush draws in my range, or even a hand like ace-jack could check call. Against that turn sizing right there, I don't want to call this at this point. I think I pretty much want to be playing check raise all in or fold. I guess if I've got the ace, especially with the flush draw, I can go ahead and I can check call that. Trying to think, I don't really make any 2 pairs aside from ace jack. That could be check raised or check called. I'm probably just going to check call my entire continue range. I'm going to fold this even though it's very strong, just because I'm not going to be able to do too much to get paid on anything except the 10. The 10 is no longer even the nuts if he somehow has queen-jack, or I'm sorry, king-queen. And he may likely just be too strong. I really can't bluff when I'm out of position in a check call line, so I'm going to play that extremely passively. And a lot of the rationale for the way that hand played out was the fact that he was using a larger size in a multi-way pot, which tells me that his hand likely is, or at least should be, stronger. And even if he's making mistakes and betting hands too weak, just the way the math works as far as how you have to defend in multi-way pots against a large size is I can fold so much of my range on the flop, and then when that turn bet comes in large again, I don't need to really continue too much. Seems passive, but I think it's reasonable. And if he is in fact strong the way I suspect he is and should be, my check raise on the flop is not going to do a whole lot for me, as I'm just going to be check raising into strong top pairs and sets kind of thing. And even though my draw is still very live, I don't need to be putting money in against a range that's super strong like that. So slightly passive, but I've got some reason for why. I'd rather be calling here even with a hand like Jack 10, Jack Queen than King 7. I want some extra outs to real strong hands. There's no cards I love on the river at this point. I mean, the Kings and the 7s are obviously pretty good, but they're still not amazing. I could be against better two pairs or straights already at that point. Queen 9, 7, 3. I really can't get too much value from this. I can't get called by a ton of worse hands. I'm going to go ahead and check and hope I can show this down. I don't know that I really fold out that 9 either. There's a rec player for sure. 60, 20, 33 over 5 hands on a short stack. Can already draw that conclusion. Another rec over here. We're getting quite a few juicy looking tables so far. And he's 22-18 with no limps. He's also using reg type size. I think I'm going to go ahead and on-tag him, as perhaps my fish tag on him was a bit premature. Upper right-hand table, we'll open the button with ace-deuce suited. A mid-40s% raise first in range. Small blind, who's a rec player, calls the small blind. Wouldn't be surprised if he leads something goofy on this board. He checks to us. Ace-5-5 rainbow. We'll go ahead and range bet small. Planning to check back probably any turn. Looking to value bet or bluff catch on the river after checking back the turn. Cut off the upper right-hand table. We'll open ace-queen suited. This would be like a 27-28% raise first in range right there. Lower left-hand table, blind on blind, facing the 3x open. We'll go ahead and 3-bet. Pocket Jack's clearly strong enough to do so. Probably have like a 17-18% 3-bet range there. Lower right-hand table, we check in our big blind, 5-3 offsuit. We flop bottom 2 pair. And I like that recreational player who's short there goes ahead and bets large, because I can just go ahead and raise against him and get this in unless these guys do something that really just sway me off of that. But I'm very happy to get bottom 2 in against a weak recreational player playing 30 blinds deep with bottom 2 pair on this limp pot. Assuming these guys fold, I'm going to be check raising. We'll go like a 60% size, kick it up to about 12 blinds here. And then be jamming the turn for the most part. Yeah, we can jam that one. Try to get called by 9s or weird random draws. Just hope he doesn't have 4-6, ace-4. Upper left-hand table, we checked in the big blind with 5-4 suited. Flapped an open-ended straight draw and a flush draw. Lower left-hand table, we jabbed the turn after checking the flopper to follow through and try to bluff the river with our absolute lack of showdown value. I called my king 5. It's a reasonable way to play. Over here, I'm going to use a pot size check raise just because I'm not doing this with anything. I'm not doing this for value with anything weaker than 2 pair. I'm not really going to be check raising. My good jacks were raised pre-flop against the limpers first of all, so I'm not going to be check raising to a smaller size with a more marginal top pair. So we'll just go ahead and check raise this for pot with our hands like 6s, 7s, jack 6, jack 7, 7, 6, and of course some good draws. Lower left-hand table, we raise the cutoff open with ace-jack or re-raise with ace-jack offsuit. Got a monotone flop. We'll go ahead and range bet it small in position. Beautiful turn card for us over here on the upper left-hand table. We're going to go ahead and bet it roughly geometric pot. Let's see. I think about 22 should be about right. We'll go 23. And we're going to go ahead and try to bluff on the river with the ace-jack over here. Not going to fold out a queen, but may fold out a lot of other marginal pairs. Lower right-hand table, we're going to raise the cutoff with ace-4 suited. Got folds in both of those pots, one where we wanted one where we didn't. In both cases, we picked up the pot. Lower left-hand table, we open king-queen on the cutoff. Upper left-hand table, we'll open Jack 9 on the button. And look at that, against that real small 3-bet. Getting like 3-1 with plenty of money behind us. This isn't the kind of hand I love calling 3-bets with, but its price is so good, I think I have to continue pretty much everything. Maybe I can fold like raggy offsuit aces and stuff with no real nut potential at all, but a hand like this that makes a lot of straights, I'm going to go ahead and call against that great price. I'm going to be cautious with the 1-pair hand here, though, so I'm actually not going to bet the flop, even though he checks to me and I've got top pair. So turn, I'll probably start betting for equity denial or value. Yeah, we'll go ahead and use a half-pot bet here. Multi-way pot, we have an open-ended draw here in that limp pot. We're facing a lead on the turn from the small blind. It's a 3-flush board. I'm going to go ahead and fold. I want to continue with spades in my hands. Draw, you know, the more multi-way the pot is, the more I'm worried about my draws being the nut-type draws and not drawing the second-best hands. So I'm just going to go ahead and fold the open-ender with no spade on the 3-spade board. Lower left-hand table. Got the button open 2.5x. We'll go ahead and 3-bet with the Jack or the 10-9 suited. I'll probably look pretty wacky on this table as I've been 3-betting a lot. But not that I've been out of line. I've just been picking up hands I should be 3-betting. Small blind against a cutoff 3x open is 7-7 is probably just outside the range of hands I should be 3-betting. Against a smaller open and presumably wider raise first in range, that would probably sneak into the 3-bet range, and especially also with my image probably being on the wacky side with all the 3-betting I've done the first couple of orbits, three 3-bets out of 4 chances. I think it's probably best to just let that one go. Upper left-hand table, go ahead and check range with the caller in position to us on the 9-5 deuce board. After we ISO'd a limper, he bets a pretty decent size, just over half pot. We don't have a whole lot in the way of any equity, just overcards and some backdoor gut shots. I think we can just go ahead and safely fold that one. If he bets smaller, my decision gets a lot tougher, but he didn't do that, and now he keeps blasting. I would have made top 2. So now I've got a hand I'm looking to get the money in with, but I'm still beat by his real strong flop hands, his sets. Curious to see what he has here, because he also was a fishy recreational player that could be doing that with all kinds of stupid stuff. He had ace-king, so I guess I would have got there, but it wouldn't have been smart for me to do so. We checked around with our flop straight, and after checking in the big blind, the upper right-hand table. Turn is a bad card for us in that it makes the straight very obvious. So we're going to go ahead and start betting. Bet small multi-way. Now that we're heads up, we'll go ahead and use a more standard-sized bet on the river. And get led into. We've got some overcards, in theory, some backdoor gut shots. If I had a diamond in my hand, I think I would have float this. I'm just going to go ahead and fold with no diamond. Upper left-hand table under the gun raises first in for 3x. We're in middle position, and we 3-bet 7.5%, 8% range, including ace-queen offsuit. However, against the 4-bet, a pretty large 4-bet, as a matter of fact, about a full 3x 4-bet. I'm just going to go ahead and easily fold ace-queen offsuit. No reason to come along for that. On the turn, I go ahead and bet small. We had 3 monotone flop. Then we turned an offsuit queen for an overcard for our top pair. River is not great. However, I'm going to go ahead and just bet small, almost like a blocking value type bet. Try to get called by some 10x. There will be some ace-x, particularly the ace of clubs, still in those guys' ranges, but a small bet, I'm not too worried about getting called by that, because I'm also going to get called down by some janky smaller pairs that I beat to offset the times that I value cut myself against an ace. Open ace-jack offsuit in the upper right-hand table on our button. I think we'll shuffle out this lower left table. I've been wacky. Doesn't seem that fishy. And we just get 3-bet jammed all in. We're not going to call off with ace-jack. Ace-queen gets a bit closer. I wonder if that guy's just doing that because he's a spaz, or maybe he's new to the table and trying to look like a spaz and doing that with ace-queen, pocket kings. Let's keep an eye on him and see what he does. See if he starts doing it a lot. Okay, now he clicks it back. Well, he's 3-bet twice in 2 chances, and he took probably the 2 worst sizes he could pick that are also as different as they could be from one another, a min click back and an all-in jam. I'm content to say this guy is not a serious player based on 2 hands. We can revise that based on what else he does, but I think it's a reasonable conclusion to draw based on the information we have at our disposal thus far. Now he goes and makes that little check raise. He seems like an active, spazzy guy. We will look for a chance to trap him here. I think that's the table I've just been leaving, so I'm going to try to get another one other than the table that I already didn't want. Multi-way pot, we have a second pair, no kicker, no real backdoor draws. I think it's fine to go ahead and fold that, especially against a sizing that's a bit larger than it should be in a multi-way pot. And of course, we fold what would have been trip queens, and we're still not even sure that our hand is good. We beat the aces now, but we're behind pretty much all the other queens. I still think the flop fold is very clearly correct, even though it didn't work out for us that time. Lower right-hand table, we open jacks on the cutoff, get called in position by a recreational player. We'll check range on the ace, queen, 8 two-tone board. We turn a 10. I'm going to go ahead and jab out small with my pair, my double gut shot. I really don't do this a lot, but this session it keeps coming up where I think the hands better than me don't really fold. I don't know that I get called a ton by worse. I get called by some worse hands, some 10x, some 8x, but I think it's better to just check this down and hope he's got a hand like 10-9, 10-jack, 10-king that I beat, and he's not going to bluff enough in these lines. So, well, I don't think you should be doing that a lot. I've been finding spots to do it a lot in these particular games and scenarios today. Jack 8 is kind of a close cuspy hand for opening or not on the button. He had King 9 of spades. He really should have turned that into a bluff once I checked, but just, there's an example backing up my point that these guys are not bluffing enough in that check call bet line. They're checking back hands they shouldn't. They should be bluffing, especially recreational players, which leads into partially why I'm checking and not blocking or value betting or whatever I might come up with excuse to bet that river. And that's a fine example of why, because they're not even bluffing me off when they have the hands to do it with and when they should be doing it. They're letting me show down a marginal showdown value for free way more than they should let me, which makes that checking as opposed to betting a lot better. Open 10s under the gun. On the table it is now the upper left-hand table. We open queen 10 offsuit blind on blind, the lower right-hand table. 4-way pot will check range to the players in position to me on the king deuce 4 rainbow board. I'm not going to give him credit for the king. I blocked king 10, which is some of the kings that he would have. He could be doing that with 4x, random pairs, all kinds of random air. Had this guy folded, I was going to call and just hope this guy doesn't squeeze me out. I would have been right to do it too. Against his ace deuce, gets called down by king deuce 2 pair that was never going anywhere. So I like my decision, and I like my plan to have called had this guy done something differently. I think that's a solid way to approach that spot. Given that guy is very clearly a fish who just jams for slightly over pot with 12 blinds left, and he's probably calling with all kinds of janky stuff pre-flop, which of course he was because he had ace deuce offsuit. Lower right-hand table, open the 10-8 suited on the cutoff. Well, it's now the upper right-hand table after the reshuffle. Doesn't change our decision any, but changes where we're looking on the screen. Squeeze from the big blind. We're going to be awfully tight here against this, especially when it comes to calls, and 8-10 suited is just nowhere near strong enough to be calling, even without it being a squeeze situation with the player behind me that could call in position or squeeze me back out by back jamming over the top. Even without those factors, I'm not going to be defending 10-8 suited there against any standard size 3-bet. The squeeze situation makes me get a lot tighter with my calls on top of that, so it's an easy fold. I'd rather be in position to the suspected wrecks, buying them with 20, 30 blinds as opposed to the full stacks. I'm just happy to have them at the table and getting their table back up. So we'll stick with this one for a while. This guy also isn't topping off, so it's a chance he's not exactly a world beater either. And I think that's our wacky spazzy friend. Yeah, you got a bunch of 3-bets. And you should be 3-betting here. Going to treat it more like a cold 4-bet though. Do like a queens plus ace king to stack off with against somebody playing back at me. Probably about a 6 or 7 cent range there. Something like 10s plus, ace queen plus, ace 10 suited, king 10 suited, maybe queen jack suited, something like that. Got a larger button open, 3.5x. I'm not going to call nearly as much against that, atypically large size. However, jack 8 suited is probably one of the hands we will actually call. Check range on the 10-5-5, not really donking into the pre-flop raiser at all. He goes ahead and pots the flop then. Just going to be a very easy fold, just with some weak backdoors. Lower right-hand table, we open pocket 8s under the gun. Lower left-hand table will open ace-10 offsuit blind on blind. Lower right-hand table will range bet on the ace-7-5 rainbow flop. Quickly folds to us. He opened for 4x, so he's probably also a recreational player. Keep an eye on this guy, too, who used that weird button sizing. Blind on blind gets a 3x open. We're going to use a few offsuit hands that are just outside the calling range to 3-bet with. 9-7 offsuit's one I'd like to put in that range. So we'll go ahead and pop him up there. 9-8's probably just outside our defense range from a cutoff 2.5x open when we're in the big blind. Pretty close, but I think you can go ahead and fold it. Lower right-hand table, ace-8 offsuit is an open. Hand we open for 3x blind on blind. Get called, then we'll go ahead and check range on the 10-9-5 two-tone board. Let's go ahead and check fold against his flop stab. Upper right-hand table, we open king-10 on the cutoff. We'll check range to get in position our wacky friend on the ace-7-3 rainbow flop. Mostly just be folding if he stabs us off. Well, now that he checks, we are going to go ahead and stab at it ourselves. He's just missed that board with so much without having an ace or 7 or 3 in there. All kinds of stuff is no pair, no draw. This guy's also limped, aside from his wacky open size on the button, or not totally wacky, but he was hitting the pot button, and now he's got a limp. I think we can go ahead and tag him as a rec. Same thing with these guys, playing real short, though that should be very obvious, even if I'm in a hand with them, just by seeing their short stack. This guy hasn't limped, but he's got a very wide gap between pre-flop raise and his VPIP. Let me see, where is he VPIPing from? He's VPIPing 4 times in the small blind without a raise. Which is odd. Once in the big blind without the raise. Twice on the button without being a raise. Go ahead and tag him. Just keep an eye on how he plays. Another pretty wide gap over here between VPIP and pre-flop raise. 4 times in the small blind. That might just be statistical noise, though, that wide gap. Oftentimes, a wide gap between VPIP and pre-flop raise is an indicator a player is not a serious regular. Because you should not be, first of all, you shouldn't be limping. You shouldn't be calling raise RFIs, raised for sins, all that often either outside of the big blind. So that the pre-flop raise and VPIP number stats should both be pretty tight together. Shouldn't be a wide gap between the two of them if you're playing properly. So when I see that, it tells me we may have a recreational player, though I think in this guy's case, he just found some hands to limp in with the small blind some. Yeah, limp with previous limpers, 4 out of 6 in the small blind. So his small blind V hips without a raise were all limping after limpers. So yeah, I think that's just noise why that gap is there, because he's limping behind or limping in with these other wrecks, and they're doing stupid fish limp stuff. Yeah, so he's probably not a recreational player. He's just adjusting to what the wrecks are doing. Open king, queen in middle position on the lower left-hand table. Get 3-bet to 9. He's only got 4 blinds left behind him. Really only all in or fold, and I don't think I want to be putting in another 10, 11 blinds against this guy. So I'm just going to go ahead and fold it. Lower left-hand table, we got a button 2.5x. We're on the small blind. Be a standard 3-bet here with pocket 7s. However, this guy has been awfully snug so far. I may actually adjust and be a bit tighter against this guy, treat it more like a cutoff open, in which case pocket 7 should still be a 3-bet. It's just not more clear. It's more of a cuspy 3-bet. But I think it's okay to do that in this scenario, given that he's a button there opener, and even if he's kind of on the tight side. I think pocket 7 should be a 3-bet here. But I am 3-betting a tighter range than I otherwise would against a button open because of this guy's perceived tightness thus far. Same table, we'll open Jack 10 offsuit on the button. Yeah, he's limping the button. We're right to have rec tagged that guy. Recreational players abound. These guys limping behind is justifiable. Under the gun, 3.5x open. We're going to go ahead and 3-bet from the small blind. That larger open size should denote a stronger range, so I'm going to start getting significant, progressively tighter as that open size gets bigger. Ace-king, of course, is still going to be a part of the 3-bet. Small blind against the 2.5x open. From the middle position, we're going to go ahead and 3-bet the ace-king over there. Go ahead and bet ace-king, bet range small. On that table, the diamond will go ahead and check the turn. Top 2 in the lower left-hand table will go ahead and range bet. Now, I think I just want to try to get paid by any ace. I mean, I lose to flushes, ace-queen, or some random deuce, which he doesn't have. I think we're just going to stick it in and try to get heroed. Snap calls me. Slight overbet, but I think that's okay there. We'll open queen 3 of diamonds on the button, especially when that guy is probably kind of fishy using that poor size. He had 8-8 with no diamond, and he snap called me. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and just tag this guy as being kind of special. He's not here to fold, and that's okay. Open 6s on the cutoff on that upper left-hand table. Recreational player calls us in position. Big blind calls as well. We'll go ahead and range check on 7-5-5 two-tone. Not a terrible board for our 6s, though. Lower left-hand table will open ace-queen and the cutoff. We'll stab with the sixes if it checks to us again. Use a small size multi-away with those two players out there. Probably check back the river if he calls. Yeah, definitely checking back the ace. Oh, he leads into me. I don't love that. I don't think that is really going to be a. Oh. Just seems more likely to be like an 8. Let's see here. Let me think about this for a minute. That sizing also indicates, though, that it's weak. Fish are just way over bluffed in that kind of sizing. Well, hero. Got him. That's larger, he can make me fold there. Just fish are so bluffy with that sizing. Like 19% over bluffed in a vacuum for the half pot size on the river. That it's just hard for me to fold any kind of showdown value against a fish when I've seen this stuff from these guys before. Oh, and I meant to bet smaller on that flop or on that turn, but not the end of the world. Getting raised there, I think it's an easy fold multi-way. 2.5x against a button open and small blind call on the lower right-hand table. We're going to go ahead and squeeze that up with the pocket eights. We'll range bet the upper left-hand table with deuces on the king 8-4. And we just hit the gin card right here. We'll look to bet about geometric pot, growth of pot to get him all in. Oh, he's betting in us. He's doing it for us. So we'll just go ahead and flat that and raise, bet or raise any river all in. So he donks the turn for pot, then he bets about 10% of the pot on the river. We'll ship him in. 8-7 offsuit's kind of on the cusp of opening blind on blind. We'll just go ahead and fold it. Got a limper on the lower right-hand table. We'll go ahead and isolate from the button with King Jack suited. Some silly play from our opponents out here lately, which is not to be that surprising, I don't think. Okay. I think I want to be using my King Jack or my Jack 10 gut. Jack 10's a double gutter, but I want to be using my King Jack that has a club that blocks the flush draws. I think I'll check back the King Jack with no club. He jams into me, all in. We got king high. It's a pretty easy fold. Raindrops. I might have wanted to sneak in there. I shouldn't have clicked that automatically fold button. Normally I wouldn't flat anything from the small blind, but a relative, a reasonable open size 2.5x with an overcaller in there helping to juice up my pre-flop odds, and against a fishy player, I think that's going to be okay. Now we get a lead into us. We have top two. I think we should just go ahead and raise this up for pot with top two, looking to get some value in there. Trap between players. I want to treat multi-way post-flop when there's a player to act behind me a lot like pre-flop, where I'm not really calling with players that can still squeeze me. I'm playing pretty much raise or fold anywhere except in the action closing spots on the big blind. Same idea post-flop. I get let into, I'm second to act with the player behind me. Probably going to be playing raise or fold in a lot of spots right there. Otherwise, I've got to figure out a way to weave in traps as well, which gets complicated. Rec limps under the gun. We'll isolate from the cutoff with the ace-7 suited. We can defend this blind on blind 3x here with the 4-5 off. It's further at the bottom of our defense range. Nice flop for it, though. And the rec limp calls over there. We got queen 7-3 rainbow, so we'll go ahead and do our small range bet on the flop. A lot of good cards for our hand. We can check back the ones that don't improve us, like the 5. And we'll just peel with our trips here. Now he donks into me for half pot on the river. He doesn't, not really a donk bet because we checked back the turn, but I think that's going to be a pretty easy call here with a bluff catcher type hand. Yeah, he's got ace-4 for, not really sure what he's doing, but that's what he has. Now, I don't really think he's going to check that 9 to me in this particular line. I think I want to go ahead and try to get value here, and I usually use a full pot size bet on these double paired boards. I'm not sure if that's correct in this particular spot, but I think we should go ahead and do that. It's going to be hard for him to put me on bluffs as part of the problem with that as well, and I need him to hero me with either ace-high over pairs or some kind of flush that he was semi-bluffing with, and then he checked when the board double paired when the flush came in. I don't really know what the right bet sizing is there. I'm sure I want a value, but I'm just not sure what the right sizing convention is in that particular line. That's kind of an unusual spot. Under the gun opens to 3x. We get a small blind caller. We're going to treat this almost like a cold 4-bet because the sizing's starting to get a bit on the large size. We'll stack off with queens plus ace-king, mixing a pretty healthy amount of bluffs, at least as many bluffs as value combos, and probably some more. I think we can use ace-10 suited as one of our hands that is going to 3-bet but then fold if we get jammed over the top. He quickly calls, and the other player calls behind him as well. We're just going to go ahead and check. Against the small blind, re-steal, we're just going to go ahead and flat the ace-king offsuit in position. You can 4-bet that or you can call it. I don't hate either. I like calling with it in position quite a lot, unless the ranges are real loose and wide. I don't think they're particularly wide and wacky here, given it's an ISO and a 3-bet spot. Nothing really going for this hand here at this point. We'll just go ahead and fold the ace-10. Against a 1/3 bet, we've got the overcards, the gut shot to Broadway. We're going to go ahead and float that. We're going to have quad 10s, jacks full. We're going to have probably a couple of combos, probably some ace-10 suited. Well, the ace-10 of spades. We'll have king-queen suited. Probably have some king-10 suited. We'll have some jack-10 suited. We can go ahead and check back the ace-king here, under-rep my hand, try to catch a bluff or get some value on the river. You know, we ace-queen's the kind of hand I want to get value from. That sizing I very much like. I think that's probably an ace trying to get value more than anything, so I'm just going to go ahead and gladly call that down. Oh, 5-4, just looking for a cheap bluff, so that's also reasonable too. Reasonable if he has it pre-flop at least. Upper left-hand table, we'll open blind on blind with jack-9 suited. When we get 3-bet with queen-jack off, we'll just go ahead and fold. And check range in the upper left-hand table. And just check fold with no real backdoor equity. Excuse me, no real backdoor equity to speak of. Recreational player 3-bets the small blind to a small size in about 3.5x against my button open. This could be a nice hand to continue with here. Oh, and the big blind comes along and calls off his last 6.5 blinds. Lower left-hand table will range bet against that small blind. Seems like a recreational player, Jack 9-3 rainbow. Over here, I was going to check back with my smaller flush draw. We get donked into for half pot by a rec, so we're just going to go ahead and flat. This is a little on the loose side to isolate with, but that guy's been so weak and reckless, I think it makes sense. We picked up a gut shot, and that overcard could scare him. I think we can go ahead and continue betting here now. We'll use the overbet size. Board pairs, our flush draw is not that strong. I mean, these guys are weak. God, that's actually close if I should continue with this or not. I think I will continue, but it's close. Folding is not the end of the world. When he checks to me, I'm going to go ahead and try to get value with my smaller flush. Queen is going to just snap me off real quick. against that 2/3 size. Oh, he snap folded, so maybe he just had nonsense. And the recreational player jams for about 2/3 a pot. We got second pair. We got a backdoor flush draw. I think it's probably a little too loose to call off here, especially in that already bloated up pot. I mean, you could be doing this with gut shots, random draws, a 6x kind of thing. I'm just so far behind 10x. I'm not really as far ahead of the draws. It gets squeezed off by this guy. It's close. I'm going to go ahead and fold. If I was last to act, I think the fact that this guy could be sitting behind me with the hand that could squeeze me off or just overcall with something better, or just call and put me in bad spots and all kinds of crazy runouts, I think it's going to just go ahead and fold, even though it's borderline. If this guy wasn't involved, I would do it. And I was dominated with a slightly better 8. Yeah, the other thing, I didn't speak enough on that, but I could just be behind him enough of the time as well. It's not like I have a slam dunk called on against the guy anyway, even without other players to be concerned about. Open Jack-10 suited from middle position, the upper left-hand table. Go ahead and give this guy a rec tag. He's a hero, though. He's got a chip in a chair, and he's going for it. He's back. He had 6 blinds a couple hands ago. Now he's up to 42. So it just goes to show these guys are never down and out until they're all the way out. Flop checks through. We'll go ahead and start stabbing the turn with our second pair. Use the small size for the multi-way board. And I'm going to go ahead and just try to exploitively block against this guy and see if I can get called down by all kinds of stupid stuff. I get called down by a better jack. That's okay. Against a good player, I would not use that sizing, heads up, but I'm pretty comfortable he's not a good player, so I think it's okay. It's our weak rec player limps under the gun. We're going to go ahead and isolate up with the ace-9 suited. It's one of the weaker hands I'd isolate a limper with, but I think it's okay, especially a guy that's playing 78-43, 44 over 10 hands, 33 limps. Seven, deuce, 7, rainbow board. Doesn't hit him very hard. Nice to go ahead and range bet after isolating the limper out of position. We've got a lot of showdown value here and no reason to bluff. I'm going to go ahead and check and start moving this hand closer towards the river. Hope we face small bets or checks and we get a chance to showdown our ace high. Bets 2/3 on me. He's been pretty passive. I mean, I don't think he's going to follow through. I can call once and then check the river. Now there's a full house on the board. I don't like that card because now my ace high is no longer good. The ace high turns into a chop. I'm still losing to his pocket pairs. Well, it turned out it was good because he had 3 deuce. So I'm right. He's a recreational player, like I suspected, if nothing else, based on the fact that he is limp calling 3 deuce offsuit under the gun. Under the gun player opens for a little over 3x, 3.25. We're on the button. We're going to go ahead and 3-bet him here with our ace-10 suited. Probably about a 7.5% range. The rec cold calls the 3-bet, which I have no problem with because he's going to do that with all kinds of dumb stuff. I'm cool with this guy dropping out at this point. Let me play heads up against the total fish. But we got 4-bet, so nothing we can do at that point but just go ahead and fold. Recreational player on the lower right-hand table limps middle position. Will isolate with ace-9 suited on the button. Upper left-hand table, our small blind is facing a cutoff 3x raise first in. We have jack-10 suited, so we'll go ahead and 3-bet him there. And the fish is now donking on the king 6-6 rainbow board into the 4-better. We'll range bet the lower right-hand table on the 9-3-6 two-tone flop. We've got top pair, top kicker. He also had that backdoor flush draw on the flop. He limp calls. And if we want to go ahead and overbet at this point, we get cold called by the big blind. We'll go ahead and range bet small heads up on the king 6 deuce board, and we take it down. This guy should have a lot of traps in his range, like aces, kings, and ace-king. Whether he does or not, I don't know, but he should. And this guy is probably about to get himself into a whole lot of trouble here. He bets 50. If that guy's got a trap, he's going to shovel the rest of the money all in. If he doesn't, he's probably just going to fold. Or he could have queens as well, which is also going to shovel the money in. Yep, there it goes. This fish is totally cooked in this spot. What a guy. And folds for his last 30 blinds. Get called by both blinds. King 9-3 rainbow. We don't have anything going for a hand. We'll just check back, not using a range bet in a spot like that because of the multi-way nature of the pot. I'll stab at it here, though, if they check to me twice. Open threes on the cutoff on that lower left-hand table. The spazzy rec comes along again. We'll check range to him out of position. Would be a hell of a time to find that third 3. Ace turn after he checks back. We'll go ahead and jab at that pot small out of position. I'm going to check and try to show this down. It's probably not strong enough to bluff catch. Yeah. He just got queen 6 offsuit. Given that he's shown himself to do kind of weird, wacky things, I might have to think about it, especially for a smaller size. Upper right-hand table, we open ace-king offsuit from middle position. That wacky, spazzy recreational player comes along and calls in position, and a short stack rec calls in the small blind. We're going to go ahead and check range out of position here. On the king 10-5 two-tone board, 9 of hearts. It checks to us again. We're going to go ahead and probe out small with our top pair, top kicker. Get called. Recreational player out there. He's got a little over 1.5x pot. I think I'm just going to go ahead and put him in. Hope he doesn't have a 5. Otherwise, try to get heroed down by nonsense. And he's out. Blind on blind, upper left-hand table. We get a 3x open coming into us. We've got ace-queen, which is a very clear 3-bet. Go ahead and pop him up there. Recreational player limps middle position. We're going to isolate from the button with king-jack offsuit. Lower left-hand table, we open 9-8 suited from the cutoff. We get 3-bet by the small blind, which we will just go ahead and fold with our king-jack. Lower left-hand table, we're just going to check back on the queen 6-6 rainbow flop. However, having picked up that jack of diamonds, that's a great card for us. Gives us both a gut shot and a flush draw. So we'll be calling most bets or stabbing ourselves if it's checked to us. Big blind seems to be a regular type player. Bets about 2/3, 70% or so into us. We'll just go ahead and call in position with our draw. We made the low end of the straight. The recreational players in that pot also. Shouldn't be too many boats out there. You know, there's only one combo of quad sixes. The queens, jacks, and 10 should have all been raised pre-flop. So you shouldn't be sitting any of those. Shouldn't be a whole lot of queen 6, jack 6, or 10-6 out there either. Now, the only question here is, do I raise all in or do I just flat here with my low end of the straight? This guy does not have, I guess he could have king 9. But other than that, he does not have me beat. I think the fish can call down with all kinds of stupid sixes. I think I'm going to go ahead and make a slightly thin jam over the top here. He's never folding a 6 on me either, and he doesn't have me beat all that much, and this guy almost never has me beat. Slightly thin, but I'm good with it, especially given we've got a fish out there that could very easily have a 6 that will never fold. I guess king 9 is the hand that scares me the most. I think this player's raised if he somehow has quad 6s or some kind of full house, if he somehow stumbles into one. I guess he could have jacks. He really shouldn't have 10s, but jack should have been raised pre-flop. Yeah. Didn't get more value, but I think it's okay to try. This guy is never folding a 6. Not going to happen. And we are going to shut down the session here after this orbit. I think now is a good time to cut it. And looks like that's about it. Thanks for watching, folks. I hope you had fun watching the video. I know I had fun playing. Till next time, this is Charlie Murphy signing off.